Am I coming in now? Can you guys hear me? Okay, let me try the microphone again. Okay, am I coming in clear? Hopefully everyone can hear me. This is Mohenjo-Daro in the background, one of the most ancient cities in all of history, built by the Indus River civilization people 5,000 or 6,000 years ago. One of the most famous cities in human history. The Indus River Valley civilization is probably concurrent with the earliest Chinese civilization, the Shang, and also the Mesopotamians, the Paleo-Babylonians, Sargon-of-Akkad, Hammurabi, people like that. Actually probably predates it. At least this is where some of the earliest writings probably took place in the most ancient of languages, or one of the most ancient of languages, Sanskrit. But anyways, outside I couldn't get a connection going, so I went back inside, and so we have our connection back. Hopefully it's working well for everybody, and we can continue with Q&As about history and social studies. We'll go for about another half hour or so. But yeah. And we are indeed back. So if you guys, this is the Friendly Neighborhood History channel. Welcome back. If you're returning, it's good to see you. As always, if you are new, please consider liking and subscribing. Becoming a member, you get early access and all sorts of stuff. If you want certain attention on a particular topic, if you want to talk about politics, which we're trying to avoid here on the channel, or if you want a more detailed response, consider giving a super chat. Anything that you donate to this channel helps it, and we use that money to help the channel get better. So, can you talk a bit about the downfall of Peter III? Who did his wife Catherine the Great ally conspire with? What were her motives to overthrow her husband? Peter III was the Russian Tsar. He was a friend of Frederick the Great, and in the First World War, the 7 Years' War I was just talking about in the last live stream, he basically backed down after his aunt Elizabeth died. She was the Tsarina, the daughter of Peter the Great. He took over and basically copped out of the war and allowed the Prussians to basically win the war. Basically saving Frederick the Great from absolute defeat and humiliation, changing the course of world history and allowing Prussia to rise. In the 19th century, Prussia would unify all of the German-speaking peoples and create the German Empire. So it's a huge historical change when Elizabeth dies before defeating Frederick, and then Peter gives his hero, the German leader, a reprieve. Peter had grown estranged from his wife, Catherine, who may have had her child, Paul, with another man. The two of them did not get along well, and so she plotted his downfall and got her boyfriend, her lover, Gregory Orlov, and his brothers to overthrow Peter and take him outside of the palace and murder him, and she became the Tsarina and one of the most famous rulers in all of world history because of it. So there you go. Mexico is the greatest civilization ever. There's clearly a lot of great things about the Mexican civilization. I don't know what you particularly want me to talk about with them. Which language is Hindi derived from, and can you talk about when India and Pakistan were unified? Well, India and Pakistan have distinct different practices culturally and religiously, but they have a lot in common. Also, they're some of the earliest, the ancient civilization of the Indus River Valley managed in the Indus River, which is mainly in Pakistan, although part of it is in India. For most of India's history, Pakistan and India were not considered to be separate, distinct entities. You have different kingdoms like the Delhi Sultanate and later the Mughal Empire. Islam's presence in India obviously is a huge part of Pakistan. Pakistan is the Muslim majority area that was cut off, Western and Eastern Pakistan, when the British decolonized, and Eastern Pakistan, of course, later became Bangladesh. Patek News, I don't know what you mean by that. Trump News sick update. If you want me to talk about all that kind of stuff, please do a super chat. This is the Friendly Neighborhood History channel. It's not the Friendly Neighborhood Political History or Friendly Neighborhood Political channel. I don't mind talking about politics in a historical context, but everybody wants my opinion about political issues. I don't give my personal opinion about them, but if you want my analysis of them, I'm going to do it via super chat because I'm redirecting this channel to history and social studies. We do history and history accessories, as Hank Hill might say. Pakistan and India have very similar culture, very similar history. For a long time, they were the same entity. Yes. Although Harry can continue to talk about politics. Not too much. I hope everything's going well. Humans don't know anything, which is funny because there's a human commenting that on my channel. Can you please explain why the Treaty of Tilsit failed? The Treaty of Tilsit was basically Napoleon forcing Alexander I after defeating him and the Russians to join the Continental System, which was an embargo system aimed at weakening the British so Napoleon could eventually defeat them in the wars. It was his final goal for victory was to basically defrock the British. Alexander grew tired of economic worries. He had worked with the British before to fight against Napoleon. Napoleon and basically did not want Napoleon to tell him what to do. So in 1811, he broke off and declared allegiance with England. And of course, the French invaded with the Grande Armée. And this leads to one of the most famous parts of the Napoleonic Wars. In fact, one of the most famous parts of all of European history, where Napoleon is somehow surprisingly defeated by both a Russian winter and Russian guerrilla warfare tactics, and Alexander I earns his place in history as the Tsar, as the man who defeated Napoleon, or one of the main men to defeat Napoleon. So there's some stuff there. Did religion, is it off topic to ask how Texas is considered a Lone Star State? I forget why it's called the Lone Star State, Kevin. I think it could be because they were their own republic for almost 10 years before they were annexed by President John Tyler in 1845. Did religion play any political France and Spain against Anglican Great Britain? Yes, it did, but also these rivalries were far more political than they were religious. The 30 Years' War proved this, where you have the French and Cardinal Richelieu fighting against the Habsburg Catholics, despite the fact the war started off as a religious war between Protestant and Catholic. It eventually became a war between rival for political dominance over Europe between the Habsburgs and the French in the early days of Louis XIV's reign. Are you in Egypt searching Yu-Gi-Oh! Pharaoh? Funny, but no. This is Doheno Mojo, one of the most ancient and storied cities in all of history, and it is actually from Pakistan. Let me see here. I'll answer your questions as soon as I can. If you want me to go into more detail, you guys know what to do. Sorda, do you really just waste your time saying ridiculous nonsense? Glad to be back here with y'all. Sorry I couldn't be here the other day. Got caught up in other things. We're glad that you're here. It's good to see you. Has the France benefited from colonialism in Africa? France became extremely wealthy and powerful and was one of the largest empires in the world and in all of history because of their colonialism in Africa. And one of the reasons they continue their post-colonial relationship is because of that. Hold on one second. The background is Mohenjo-Daro. For those of you who are asking, it is an ancient city in Pakistan from one of the oldest civilizations in all of history, the Indus River Valley. The Caucasus regions are a series of mountains. It's where we get the term Caucasian from. It was occupied for a time by the Russian Empire. I'm trying to remember exactly where it is. My geography is a little off today. So yeah, we use historical backgrounds and all sorts of stuff, Captain Blackbeard. Can you explain why America took British border dispute with Venezuela? Can you explain why America took Britain's border dispute with Venezuela despite the Monroe Doctrine? America basically decided, the Monroe Doctrine is an interesting step forward in American foreign policy. It's the first time the Americans basically decided to speak on behalf of both the Northern and Southern Hemisphere, trying to end colonization in the Western Hemisphere by the Brits, the French, and the other European empires. And this played out throughout the rest of the 19th and into the 20th century and was eventually expanded upon, where the United States not only spoke for the Western Hemisphere, but for the whole Western world. Why did God create both good and bad things? I'm not a religion channel. What is the news today? Go and check out my daily news videos. Any history of UFOs? I mean, the modern UFO movement really gets started with Roswell and Area 51 in the late 1940s and early 1950s. There's a lot of suspicion about military units and things like that being made during the Cold War and all sorts of things of that nature. So, why am I pigeonholed as a right-wing commentator? Because I find Milo funny. I am center-left in Great Britain, but MAGA center-right in USA, because the USA is far more conservative than the rest of the world. If you want me to talk more about that, consider the super chat. I hate to be annoying about that, but yes. Why did America take Britain's side in its border dispute with Venezuela despite the Monroe Doctrine? I'm not sure. I imagine that would be over British Guyana. I'm not sure why they did. Can you talk about how the history of the royal family of England and how it changed into its current one? I mean, it had German connections. It had, I mean, by the 19th century, the royal families of all these different areas of the world were intermarrying with each other quite consistently. And so it was very, very common for them. So they have a German, they have Alfred of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, who marries Queen Victoria, who herself has some German ancestry from the Hanovers. And so there's a predominant German influence. This house is eventually changed to the House of Windsor during the Second World War, what you call World War I or the Great War, because they didn't want it to sound German when they were fighting against the Kaiser. Pearl Harbor, any details? Largest terrorist attack in American history until 9/11 brought America into the last World War. There is some information that might corroborate that FDR knew something was coming. We don't know exactly. Please be sure to like the live, by the way, and subscribe for more. Have you heard of Sigreve's Atlas? I have. I don't know a huge amount about it. How can I avoid paying taxes? Don't go onto a public forum and talk about avoiding it. What are your thoughts if the current World War III escalates and how it's getting closer to of global craziness? The only thing that I've seen that could trigger what I would be considered to be World War IV would be the Russians actually invading Poland, and the drone strikes aren't a good sign of that. But more and more, I was of a mindset a couple of years ago that there might be a world war. It seems to be tailing off, but Israel is not tailing off any of its actions, attacking Qatar, for instance, earlier this week. And of course, Russia sending a drone strike into Poland has been huge news. Please follow us on the social medias. My wonderful moderators pinned, and show them some love. They do such a great job. Yes, America probably wanted better relations with the British. That's why they did it. The United States and Canada were not the same. They were not governed the same. They were not considered the same. Their colonization process was the same. The British considered them very different, and the British didn't get predominant hold on most of Canada until after the 7 Years' War in 1763. Yep, of course, Scarface, do whatever you need to do. When was three? The First World War is the 7 Years' War. The Second World War is the Great War, and the Third World War is indeed the war with the Nazis and all of that. So, ever had? I don't know what you're asking. Why did America get involved with Vietnam? The United States at first was against the French and opposed the French and wanted Vietnamese independence. It was part of a larger movement of decolonization. They pressured the French and the British to give up their colonies, hoping these colonies would pick capitalist democracy, looking friendly on it. But the fact that they didn't eventually led the United States to intervening and fighting against Ho Chi Minh and the communists, setting up proxy governments, military dictatorships in the South to corral the Vietnamese people into basically being forced to accept democracy. Let me see here. Let me see. Have I answered all the questions? Pearl Harbor, any details? What is the origin of the Basque language? The Basque people were a distinct people in the northwest of Spain who were never conquered by the Muslims when Al-Andalus was taken by the Umayyads in the late 7th, early 8th century. Do you think Hitler wanted to match Britain with its own royal family during World War II or World War III? Not sure. Have you heard of Ramana? Not quite. How old is the oldest religion? It would be Hinduism, probably about 3,000 to 4,000 years old. Maybe closer to 5, but it really doesn't get its written form until the Vedic period in about 1500 BC, which is around the time of, if you want to compare it to the Abrahamic religions, of the supposed events of the book of Exodus. Can you talk about the history of the royal family of England? I already answered that. Okay, so I have caught up. Do you know about the Philippine and U.S. war? After the U.S. Liberated the Philippines, they turned them into their own colonies, and Emilio Aguinaldo and the Filipinos fought back for 10 years, and the United States repressed them brutally. Ronald Reagan was influenced deeply by the religious right. He was one of the first openly pro-life presidents, and he created a coalition that included traditional religious evangelicals, especially, and Catholics who were against abortion in particular. Yeah, I don't need lip injections. How old is Christianity then? Christianity is about 2,000 years old, obviously, but I mean, we're living in that time based on that calendar. It was an offshoot of Judaism that grew into its own religion by the end of the 1st century. I am not a Jew. World War IV, if Russia fully invades, well, the China attacks Taiwan. Yep. And North Korea would attack South Korea and Japan. Iran would probably attack Israel. Do you think people are tearing America down out of jealousy? Could be. America's pretty good at tearing itself down. I'm from the United States. Thank you for joining us, Sagar from India. We have our moderator, Harry, from Great Britain. We have people from all over the world here at the Friendly Neighborhood History Channel. Is it accurate to say that the so-called French and Indian War is simply the North American theater of World War I? Yes, except that Portugal and Spain were also kind of fighting near the end of the war. So you get two of the largest empires in the world at that time joining the conflict kind of late. Ronald Reagan's greatest achievement, probably taking down the Soviet Union, being the main conduit for putting advanced pressure on them. But you look like someone that lives in a nuke family. Thanks. I don't, but okay. I'm a gay Muslim from Malaysia. Fascinating. Always interesting to hear about people, even though you just said that you're you're British. So, Reinhardt, I think you're just trying to troll. The end is near. We'll see. Let me see. Questions. Drop something in the chat. If you have a question about history or social studies, make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Islam is about 1,400 years old. It originates in the early 7th century. The supposed inventor is a man called Muhammad. Muhammad was supposedly from Mecca. I keep saying supposedly because there's really not a lot of historical documentation for this. And I get in a lot of trouble for this, but there isn't a huge amount of evidence that Muhammad even wrote the Quran. Muhammad was illiterate, so you would have to believe in a miracle automatically to even believe that he wrote the Quran. There isn't evidence necessarily that he even lived in Mecca. There is evidence of a Medina existing long before Mecca, but Mecca's existence is a little bit more dubious itself. And you don't have the first full versions of the Quran emerging until the late 7th century, after the fourth caliph, I believe it was Uthman, destroyed a bunch of other copies of it. And tried to harmonize all of the copies in existence. But Islam is about 1,400 years old. Go check out my early video on Islam. I lagged out. Not sure if you answered my question. Do you have a favorite general? All areas. Didn't answer that one, Ben, but great question nonetheless. Napoleon. I mean, I'm just going to go with the easiest thing. I don't think Muslims believe he wrote the Quran. Oh, they certainly believe he wrote the Quran. Why did the Romans go to England? Julius Caesar landed there, probably I think on the auspices of chasing down Celtic groups. The Gauls were a type of Celts Celtic group that had settled in France. Caesar had subdued Gaul, and so he went into England, claimed it, and then eventually the Caesar Claudius went in and conquered it in the 40s AD. Which is the better era for Spain? Andalusia era, Spanish Inquisition era? It's an interesting question, Khalid. I know you're probably expecting one answer or the other. The Andalusian area is obviously a very, very successful time of growth, learning, tolerance, and economic development and culture, beautiful art, and amazing discoveries. It's part of the Muslim Golden Age when the Umayyads and later the Almoravids ruled over Spain. Eventually, the Reconquista kicked them out. And despite the fact that the Inquisition period was far more repressive and dark, especially for Jews and Muslims, compared to the Andalusian period, which had been only somewhat discriminatory against Christians, but relatively tolerant of all different peoples. The Inquisition period is contemporary with Spain building the largest empire the world had ever known at that point. So, greetings from Makarek. Thank you for joining us. I hope I'm saying that right. What's the oldest religion exists and which is the oldest religion that doesn't exist now? I don't know about the oldest religion that doesn't exist now. You would probably look at the polytheistic religions of the ancient Babylonians and Mesopotamians as an example of a religion that's basically died out. Although paganism in itself is perhaps the oldest religion. Hinduism would be the oldest established continuous religion. Cleopatra was actually one of the few Egyptian pharaohs that could actually speak Egyptian. Yes, she was very much an Egyptian nationalist, not just a Greek. Are you Mormon? No, I do not have a bicycle. Do you have any insights into the history of veganism? No, and I don't want to have any. I mean, obviously veganism, I think the nomenclature emerges in the last century. It's obviously become more and more popular as kind of a more dedicated version of relief of an idea of being against animal suffering and taking care of animal life by not forcing them to give their products to the humans, be it eggs or cheese or things like that. Any thoughts on the interstellar object? Don't know enough about it. I'm a student in England, came for the education, stayed for the queer culture and the tolerance for severe crime. Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So you're a Malaysian in England. England once controlled Malaysia, so there's a lot of back and forth there. Why? Let me see here. Hieronymus Bosch. By the way, your username, interesting enough. I always use that at a tea place when I get boba to see if anyone can pronounce Hieronymus correctly. They cannot. Very interesting. The Hellmouths. I have a video on that and about his art. He's quite a fascinating guy. Hello, Drew. Good to see you. Islam is the oldest religion, being the only one to predate humanity. That's absolute nonsense, but okay. I mean, that's like saying Judaism is the oldest religion because the Hebrew God predates humanity and created the world, or Christianity is the oldest. If you look at the way religions are in the historical record, by the historical facts, beyond whatever you happen to believe and hold dear spiritually, which I respect, you find that it's really Hinduism is probably the easiest one. And this is coming from a Westerner who lives in a Christian or a post-Christian society. Which is the better era for, I already answered that. When will the Anunnaki return? The Anunnaki, I don't even know if they existed, but they are basically this idea of giants, of interstellar beings, perhaps even ancient aliens who helped influence and grow the Paleo-Babylonian and Assyrian empires. Is it true that Benjamin Franklin owned 2 slaves? Yes, briefly. Who cut your hair? Your mother. Favorite female historical leader, greater than 50 years old. Greater than 50 years ago. Probably Catherine the Great. What are all these Muslims doing here all of a sudden? I'm happy that they're here. Been a while. Great to see you, Shrukin. Is that Mohenjo-Daro? Yes, Mohenjo-Daro. Now I'm pronouncing it correct. The ancient city of the Indus River Valley. We look at history of all types of history. Why doesn't the Mormon Church no longer allow polygamy? Utah wouldn't have become a state if it had continued. Let me see here. Yeah, tea plantations in Malaya. Yep. The British were very influential there. I just saw her on your other website. I gave the wrong date for the Emperor's death. I think I put 71 down, but you were correct, so I stand correct. Yes, 81 AD, the death of Titus. Why are Gen Z and millennial men more religious than women in America? That's almost bordering on a super chat comment because it's a very politically charged question. But the truth of the matter is, women and men seem to be differing in huge perspectives about the way they live their lives. It's I think it's a symptom of third wave feminism, either good or bad, where women have developed a level of independence where they no longer entertain political or religious ideas necessary for attracting a male suitor, but are completely kind of on their own. And we see a political, religious, and divide between men and women that we've never seen before. Those gaps were always there, but they're even more intense now. Thank you. I hope that that's a compliment, saying I look like someone from the Twilight series. Zoroastrianism is ancient. I think it's about 3,000 years old, 3,500 years old. It's not as old as Hinduism. So can we talk about history? Entire Greek-Roman narrative originates from Egypt, Old Thebes to New Thebes, Europe's third oldest city with bloodline and sphinx based on pharaohic account. Of course, the Europeans were heavily influenced by the pharaohs. The Romans stole from the Greeks and both stole from the Egyptians. There's no doubt about it. Is the moon made of cheese? Do you really waste your time thinking of questions like that? If you touch grass, someone will call you a good boy, whether it's Travis, Chelsea, or Bing Bong from Inside Out. Thank you. I will go sure to touch some grass so that I can hear that. It will help my confidence. Best Roman emperor in your opinion? Augustus. I think it's pretty easy. Humans predate all religions because only humans can make up all the ideologies up. I mean, if you believe in a religion, yes, you technically believe that your God predates all the other gods. So when the Muslims in the chat say Islam predates all, the Allah predates all, well, yeah, you wouldn't be a Muslim really if you didn't believe that. So of course you're going to say that, but that can be easily used by any religious background. Can that guy's mom cut my hair too? Yours is on point. Sure, I'll ask her the next time I see her. Catherine the Great was pretty good. Too bad, like a lot of great leaders, her successors were trash. Her son, her grandson, though, was pretty impressive. Thomas Edison was Mexican. Please stop. Yes. Everyone who was good in history is Mexican. Joey Joe is the Mexican version of Harry and the British. Were the slave markets the Portuguese first brought from established by the trans-Saharan slave trade? Yes. They already existed. The Portuguese didn't even ask for it. They were given it and then got hooked on it, almost like a drug. It's disgusting how enslaving and oppressing humans is a drug for other humans. The Mosque of Far Rockaway here in New York, and I can hear the culture prayers. Interesting. Yeah, that must be a nice wake-up call. I don't know if you like to get up early, but I would not like to hear that. Yeah. And I'm very well aware that that Muslims don't believe Muhammad wrote the Quran. They believe that it was there in heaven forever with him, and it's a miracle and all of that stuff, but Muhammad didn't write the Quran. Okay, yes, that's a religious technicality. From a historical perspective, it had to have a human author. Sorry. Elvis Presley was Mexican. Joey, I think you're a troll. Godism is the oldest belief religion system, over 150,000 years old. Godism? You mean theism? Talk a bit about the Pony Express. Short-lived because of a telegraph, but basically carried mail via different stops and horse travel for, yeah. Your mom wears combat boots only on the weekends. What was the impact of the School of Translators of Toledo on early modern European science after the fall of Al-Andalus? Basically, the Muslim translating and accessing Muslim information, both during and after the Crusades, helped spur on learning in Western Europe that helped influence the Renaissance. Do you think that improving living standards has a direct correlation with declining religion? It can. People tend to become less religious the more economically wealthy and educated they become. I'm not saying that it's a good thing. I'm just saying it's part of it. The problem is that the cultures that emerge, that create these conditions, were created almost exclusively religiously. I don't think there's a culture on earth that wasn't created with religion in mind, for the most part. Maybe modern alterations of those cultures are secular, but the vast majority of cultures in history have been influenced by a major religious force, be it the Hindus in India, be it, of course, which I have a video on the Varna system you're free to watch anytime. We have long-form videos every Monday and Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific. The Russian Orthodox Church, even after the Soviet Union, has proven to be extremely influential, even as a cultural relic. And, of course, Europe with Christianity, and the Middle East with Islam. Wonder Woman was Mexican. Okay, keep going along. Can't wait to hear that Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Jesus, and Muhammad were all Mexicans. Can you tell me something about the Makarek history? I don't know enough about it, Kurt. Why was Franz Ferdinand assassinated? A Serbian nationalist was tired of Austria-Hungary taking over Bosnia and wanted revenge. If there were India existed from years ago with better quality of life compared to other communities at that time. Why was the school book says India was found by Vasco da Gama? The school books do not say that. That's sounds like a European oversimplification. I've never found a school book that says India didn't exist. Sustained European contact with India had already existed, but overseas it began with da Gama. The Charlie Kirk assassination is quite movie-like. The timing of the shot, the precision, and the Tarantino-style blood. I'm deeply sad and shocked, but not adding up. Yes, I don't know. We'll see what actually happens there. I don't want to talk about it. I talked about it extensively yesterday. Is there known religions older than Hinduism? Jainism is one of the other ancient religions, and it comes from India, but I can't think of one that's extant, that is still paganic worship of Babylonian gods like Marduk, and not Philistia, what's her name? Astarte, Astoer, might predate it, but I'm not sure. Who is the American equivalent of Katie Hopkins, in your opinion? Is that the British right-wing commentator? I don't know. Maybe Laura Ingraham, I guess. Is there known religions older than Hinduism? I already answered that. Can you rank 3 oldest civilizations from oldest to newest? I think that's almost a 3-way tie between China, India, what we're talking about here, and the Mesopotamians. Let me see. Does that guy's mom do anything else? I don't kiss and tell. How do we know Mexicans are the best builders? Because they have pyramids too, and nobody questions who built them. That's a good one, Ben. Yeah, there's more pyramids in Nubia than there are, or it was called Nubia, but it's really Sudan, than in Egypt. And there's more pyramids in Central and South America than there are in Egypt. And there were pyramids in China. Human beings seem to like to build very tall structures with religious significance. Just look at the ziggurats of the ancient Babylonians, which aren't too far off from pyramids themselves. Among the oldest is Hinduism, which dates to the 5th century BCE and remains... no, James. Hinduism's older than that. The structures of Hinduism existed before the 15th century BC. It's only when the Indo-Aryans come in that they start building the Vedic text. How many presidents didn't swear on a Bible, and what did they use? Don't know off the top of my head. I think all of them have sworn on the Bible. Family Bibles, different Bibles have been used for different occasions. I don't think a single one of them went without the Bible. You're 100% correct about Hinduism. How has music reflected the different eras in the 21st century? You've got the rise of rap music becoming probably the predominant genre. You have the decline of rock and roll, and you have the rise of the pop star icon, who is a cultural icon as well, like Taylor Swift. Basically, she's Sinatra, Elvis, and Michael Jackson, but for a new generation. You've been to Stonehenge? No, but I need to go. Elvis Presley's grandfather was Mexican, making him Mexican. Google it. I mean, it's not completely impossible, but I don't really care. Is Hindu or India's civilization-based civilization the oldest civilization of them all? Close enough. Do you think we will ever be able to cure genetic disorders? It's a tough one. I think we'll get to Alzheimer's and cancer before we get to genetic disorders. What caused the rapid expansion of rail lines and heavy locomotives in America? Basically, the government giving out contracts to captains of industry to build them, the incentives for transportation of goods and materials. Economic incentives are almost always the reason something explodes. After the Civil War, Americans became interested in building railroads everywhere, and the South was the #1 target for carpetbaggers coming from the North. What you trying to get to? 10,000 subscribers would be nice. We're at 9,600, so please like and subscribe, Boogeyman. People used to think the sun was supernatural. Now we know better. True. Let me see. Yeah. What's the worst you ever bombed a history test back when you were in high school? I never bombed a history test. Let's be honest here. I think I got a B- one time in college. But come on, it's me. Daoism from Street Fighter. Technically, Mesopotamian paganism actually survived all the way up to the 11th, 12th century in the city of Iran. Yes, it's not extant anymore. Tell me a very bad history joke. Oh, jeez. Ooh, a bad history joke. Let's see. The Peninsula War. There's a bad joke on Napoleon. Happy Saturday to you, Daniel. Why are you wearing a tie in the middle of a dig site? Because I'm the lead archaeologist here at Mohenjo-Daro, trying to find as much record and ancient information as we can about the wonderful and fascinating Indus River civilization. Even the Scythians of Ukraine built burial mounds and filled them with wine bottles. The Neanderthals did that. So, happy to see you too, Fable. Mexico invented popcorn, tomatoes, corn, colored TV, Caesar salad, etc. They did invent Caesar salad, that is true. What is the most interesting historical... saying they invented tomatoes is weird. What is the most interesting historic structure or statue to you and why? Leaning Tower of Pisa, bell tower converted into a tower that looks like it's going to fall over any time. Do you have a favorite composer? Tchaikovsky, Russian history, Russian guy. Are you living your life with Jesus' words in your heart? I don't share my religious backgrounds and perspectives. Which words are that? I know this is a little hypocritical, but Joey, please stop with this Mexican thing. Yes, I'll just let it sit there. Remember, Harry is our resident English historian, British historian, who will be quick to correct me if I'm wrong about anything about British history. He's also a Trump expert for some reason, and a nationalist and a socialist at the same time. He is a British nationalist socialist. How did the workers of Ibn Khaldun influence this Spanish chronicler's writing about the Reconquista? Not sure. I don't know about Ibn Khaldun's writings. He was one of the most important Muslim historians, I know that. Obviously, the Spanish are going to write the Reconquista from the perspective of kicking out invaders and colonizers. And, I mean, from the way that we just constantly in our modern day, without proper context, lambast colonizers, the same people who lambast the Europeans for colonizing Africa, North and South America, are very, very quiet about Islamic colonization in Spain, Palestine, or any of North Africa, or any other parts of the world like India. Just saying. Where's the Kermit meme? But that's none of my business. Do you agree unrestricted AI incentives by Trump are dangerous? Political question. Give me a super chat and I'll answer it. Why exactly did Eisenhower get baptized in office? And what was his relationship with Billy Graham? Don't know if he had much of a relationship. I think he had just put it off for his life, and so there were questions about his religious conversion. YouTube's yesterday was even weirder. It was even sadder looking at people celebrating the death of somebody who didn't deserve to die. Obama was sworn in on a VHS copy of The Wiz. That's hilarious, but not true. Was the fall of Jericho historical and reliable? Look, I talk about this with religious texts all the time. Jericho has been destroyed. The archaeological record stands to the reason here. The Jericho has been destroyed, yes, set many different times. Were one of those times by the Jews or the Hebrews? Probably. That's all I can say. Next. Did Portuguese integrate with the indigenous South American population? Yes. Particularly in what's now Brazil. Hello, Richard. Good to have you here. European originated from Central Asia thousands of years ago. That's why European is really a Western expansion of Asia. To some extent, that's true. What was the area of Bharat or Hindustan before Islam or the British arrived? It included a large section of the middle of what is India, large parts of Pakistan and Bangladesh, but not all of it, and not all of the southern part of India, and not Ceylon. Thank you for typing, Michael. I appreciate your contributions. What's your favorite historical video game? Empire Earth. Nice real-time strategy. You get to live through different eras. They've got historical figures in there. It's a cool real-time strategy game from 25 years ago that holds up. Is it true that Benjamin Franklin owned slaves? 2 slaves. Yes, quit asking. Hi, good to see you, Arcana. What did the dragons come from and why did we used to think they were real? In Christianity, dragons harken back to the devil, the serpent. You have different legends about dinosaurs. Or not legends, but obviously there's some sort of human understanding of ancient monsters, fears of ancient monsters in different civilizations. There is this idea of different species that have some sort of relationship in the prehistoric world to the dinosaurs. Obviously, that's long before humans show up. But from what I understand, it's kind of a legacy of that, but also this idea of fear of great monsters in different areas of the world. Did you manage to find out why the Indus Valley civilization wiped out? Climatological factors, migration, and perhaps the Indo-Aryan invasion all combined. Just like the destruction of the Maya, though, it's kind of a mystery. I'm from Larkana City, just 20 kilometers away from Mohenjo-Daro, IVC City. Hello. Well, you should recognize this then. It's good to see you. Thank you for joining us, Skeptical Salamander. Is Egyptian mythology considered a religion? Is Egyptian the oldest form? It would be Egyptian paganism. It's one of the oldest, to be sure, but probably predated a little bit by the Mesopotamians. Why was World War I so quick? Because they were Russian. That's terrible. It was not good for the Russians, and it's World War II. How did Gerald Ford become vice president when he was the minority leader? Shouldn't the Speaker of the House move to that after Agnew resigned? The 25th Amendment allowed the president to pick his vice president. Nixon picked Ford. Lord Noha. Okay. Friendly history. Is there any archaeological evidence to support Mecca existed before the 7th century? No. There's a couple of references to cities, but the cities that are actually referenced before them that Muslims and Arabic scholars and others claim is Mecca is probably in either Jordan or Mesopotamia. They put in the wrong area. So yeah. Why was World War II so slow? Because they were stalling. Stop it. Stop it. Native Americans are from what is now called Eastern Russia. Yeah, and other parts of Asia. I'm Henry Foyle. I'm a socialist national. Oh, jeez. Brits better about the letter booms. What was Da Vinci's most significant invention? I think his painting is probably. He didn't invent a huge amount, but he gave templates that were later used for the helicopter, for instance. That was mean, but my mentor said apologize for nothing. It only encourages them. Okay. Hate for Harry. Please don't join the hate for Harry crowd. Was Noah's flood derived from the Epic of Gilgamesh? There definitely are parallels, and the ancient Greeks have this idea. Again, you have like the Anunnaki, ancient mighty men, giants, Nephilim, you have pyramids, you have megaliths, you have these things existing in all different civilizations and stories of great floods, which probably points to the possibility that there was some sort of great flood early in human history that was later mythologized into the stories of Noah and Gilgamesh. Can we agree James Polk was associated with too much with slavery as president? Yes. And there is nothing wrong with being a socialist, imperialist, colonist, free trade, British history, Donald Trump expert. Yes, and you are none of those things. Moving on. In what ways did Project MK Ultra influence U.S. debates on civil liberties during the 70s? Good question, Khalid. Basically, the CIA has admitted that they did this, but they sprayed LSD basically to figure out what would it do to humans if it was interacted with. And it was all part of experiments to see what they could do with the Soviets. What are the Moors, and are they alive today? The Moors were a leftover kingdom of Muslims in Spain that were eventually kicked out of Granada in 1492. I don't know. I think they just kind of were absorbed by North African Muslims at that point. Why can't I locate Mesopotamia? Iraq, Syria, mainly because of the British, but also because of the Ottomans. Mesopotamia was later swallowed up into different empires, the Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, and Romans, the Sassanid Persians, the Byzantines, and then the Muslim caliphates, eventually the Ottoman Turks, and later the British and French divided up those lands to create the modern states of the Middle East. Iraq, Syria, it would include parts of Iran, as well as parts of Arabia. What was the game recommendation again? Empire Earth. You are very intelligent. May God bless you always. Well, thank you. And the same to you. There was no debate, Khalid. People were brainwashed, or they had one. Okay. Ask question, and I will answer. Yes. Antediluvian pre-flood vapor layer around the earth. That's what's rumored in the book of Genesis. I don't know anything about that. Was Iran, Iraq, Palestine Islamic majority in before 500,000 years? Yes. People would have found dinosaurs and said that's a dragon. Exactly. How did the failed 1644 Treaty of Chanton between the French crown and the English crown influence the long-term relationship between the two nations and set a precedent for future conflicts? I'm not a huge expert in that, but basically, France and Britain, starting in the 17th century, really were just competing over land in America and in India. Might become Emperor America of later. Feeling cute, might become an emperor later. We'll see. It's definitely what happened with Napoleon. Let me see. Man, I asked the same question 3 times. Why do you keep asking? Because I answered it every single time. I even answered it in the last live stream. Stop asking the same question. Algorithm gods for showing me this. Well, Ben, we're so glad that you've joined us. The Overloon War Museum is cool. I will have to take your word for it, kitty cat. Why is England the wettest country? Because the royal family is always raining. Okay, no affiliate. Please stop. By the way, if Saturday is Hate Harry Day, Banana Man Sunday be Hate Horse Day. Every day is Hate Horse Day on this channel. Thoughts on Norse paganism. Really fascinating, cool stuff. And I hope everybody enjoyed Freya's Day yesterday. And Odin's Day, Hump Day is Odin's Day anyways. So yeah, if you don't think that has an influence on the English world, then you don't know anything about what Norse mythology actually was. It was eventually, of course, overcome by Christianity in terms of religious influence, but its cultural imprint still remains. Did you ever visit Russia? Yes. Harry, how exactly can you be a nationalist and a socialist? I don't know. Ask Werner von Braun when he was busy. Oh, wait, you can't. He was too busy working for NASA. What do you think about your favorite world? What favorite world? This one? The Garden of Eden was in Iraq, and the wheel and math was invented there. I thought the Garden of Eden was in Mexico, and wheel and math were also invented in Mexico. Siberia is only 59 miles from Alaska, but Navajo in USA descended from Canadian Dene tribe. Yep. I'd get RPG'd if I held a public event. Okay. Did you hear about the Viking who was reincarnated? He was born again. Oh, jeez. Well, that does explain the forced conversions of the 9th, 10th, and 11th centuries in that area. You look like Huijin from Stray Kids. I've heard that before. I think he's handsome, so I'll take that as a compliment. What is the common significance among all the civilizations in terms of a triangle and a pyramid? The ziggurats are built, and this is why Machu Picchu in South America was built this way, to ascend to the gods. You know what else was national and socialist? We all know who. So you could believe in the socialist economy theory and believe that your country is the best country. Yeah. I already know this, Harry, because there were a bunch of German guys 90 years ago who believed in socialism and believed our country was the best country. Oops. Let me see here. Why does the MiG-15 gain its different NATO code? Not sure. You're not hearing anything. I asked the same question 4 times. I answered the question every single time. Who is the Son of God? I Isn't that your job to figure that out? France was a cooler empire. France is pretty cool. I like the answers, man. Brief, precise. I have this one too, please. How did the GI Bill unintentionally deepen racial and regional inequalities despite its broad benefits? Basically, African Americans could get the GI Bill, but struggled to actually ascertain it, and it obviously influenced the desegregation of the military and called for more civil rights, the ends of redlining, and the ability for African Americans to actually gain a hold of the rights that they were being given. Do you anticipate Qatar, Iran, and Saudi Arabia joining forces to attack Israel? No. I don't think so. They've been actually pretty helpful to Israel in some ways. Everybody in Israel, for the most part, and a lot of people in the West have been aware of Qatar's shielding at the same time Hamas and things like that. I don't expect Qatar to retaliate against Israel with violence, and if they do, I expect very little to come out of it. Nothing more than we saw with Iran a few months ago. There should be a party state or any of it, so definitely not a Nazi. Yes, exactly. You are a National Socialist. I don't know if you're a worker, but you are part of a political party, but you are not German, so you're a National Socialist British Workers' Party. My ancestors are Norwegian and German. Fascinating. Thank you for sharing. Since same people hate me more than him, that's a fact. I think we should do a poll on this. Don't worry, I hate you both equally. What was the UAE's resource contribution before they found oil, and what was their income while they don't have land to grow vegetables? Not sure. They like your channel. Do you ever discuss current events, probable conspiracy theories, and what do you think about the January cover magazine, The Economist, which comes with an illustration prediction on the cover? Don't know enough about that cover. I do talk about current events. I will address it from a historical perspective, but I'm not into this. I'm not very into that. I talk about conspiracy theories in their historical context. In my opinion, a lot of conspiracy theories are not conspiracy theories because they're probably right. But yeah, energy. The truth of the matter is, I appreciate you liking the channel. If you want me to address a political or current affairs topic in depth, then consider giving a super chat. If you want me to talk about a political issue in depth, from now on, do a super chat. I'm not going to get into politics in depth the way I usually do. I talk about it from an objective lens, a historical lens. But I'm just tired. This channel is not about politics, it's about history, and everyone's done a pretty good job focusing on history. Any super chat you give helps the channel. Becoming a member helps the channel. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers, but we're also trying to get more members. Members get early access. We'll hopefully do our members-only lives and extra videos as well. I'm a nationalist and a socialist too. I want everybody to give their money, and I think my shack in the hollow is the best place on earth. There you go, YouTubes. You are very smart. Are you a born-again Christian? I don't share my religious views, as Dee and Michael should know, but I do encourage people to seek out to learn about religion. You can't hate religion and be good at history, in my opinion. How old is humanity thought to be? Hundreds of thousands of years old. It all depends. Again, that might come down to your religious beliefs, but Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, most people believe, emerge around the same time, and the humans kind of outpace them a little bit. Neanderthals just before them. What happened to the Egyptian after Pharaoh chased Moses and God off of them? What happened to the people they left? I don't know. I mean, there is some evidence of an exodus of the Hebrews, the slaves, the Hebrews, who eventually, of course, settled in Canaan. Not going to say more than that. Was Iran, Iraq, and Palestine always Islamic? No. I believe in extreme nationalism, but no eugenics. I believe everyone has the chance to life. So you're a pro-life eugenicist? That's weird. How socialist were the Arab socialist states compared to those in Asia? They had some affinity for it, but it wasn't a hardcore socialism, and it wasn't full-out communism like you saw in China or Vietnam. Why would you hate me? At least I don't get into bad arguments with random people and time them out. You get into bad arguments with me and then try to time me out. Guess who lost? Sorodon, do you just waste your time going into live streams and saying crap? Guess who lost the gun debate? This man died and had children. Why are we still talking about this in this context? Can anyone have any sympathy for any sort of suffering? Or are we just so now totally polarized and politicized that every darn time somebody who suffers and dies, we have to find out that if they were a Republican or a Democrat, then we vilify the hell out of them because they were a Republican or a Democrat, and we try to find out the politics of their shooter or killer on the other hand, so that we can say our side is right and their side is wrong. What kind of sick society are we? I'm serious. You want to continue this perpetual dehumanization of your political opponents? then look at Tyler Robinson and try to go through a fine-tooth comb to find out what party he belonged to, because that's the same my political enemy is evil attitude that led to crap like this in the first place. It's a vicious cycle, and if America keeps doing it, it's just going to get worse, and Charlie Kirk is just the beginning. There, you've triggered dark, friendly history. I'm going to have to wrap it up. I almost caught up to the chat. We're well over an hour at this point. But where do you think the Sea Peoples came from? Probably Greece, Grecian islands, somewhere in the Adriatic and Aegean. Americans are very crazy about politics. No eugenics. Okay, people are just ghouls in the air. It's disgusting. It's just stop celebrating death. And stop trying to demonize your opponents and use Tyler Robinson as an object to condemn either side. It's disgusting. So yeah, this channel has gone mad since I first came across it. Definitely wasn't my fault. Yes, clearly it wasn't your fault. You came across it and then it went mad. All right, bro, do you get rejected from the art school? No, I didn't get rejected from the art school. They accepted me, unlike somebody else. Guess who they said no to say yes to me, though? Friendly history sounds like Tucker Carlson, but he is just spitting facts, though. Don't hate each other, just respect each other. Well, that's not how Tucker Carlson sounds. Tucker Carlson sounds like this. A very clear, concise way of speaking. But people won't tell you that because they're lying to you. He was in a relationship with his transgender roommate. He had a transgender roommate. I don't know enough about it. I'm not going to speculate about this guy anymore. I'm sick and tired of it. Can we mourn him and be angry at this man who's clearly delusional? It doesn't matter what your politics are. You are delusional if you are killing someone because you disagree with them. You're probably mentally ill. At the very least, you're delusional. And your politics really doesn't matter that much. Whether you're Vance Butler in Minnesota killing those two Democratic people, or you are this guy who killed Charlie Kirk. What is your favorite color? We'll end with that. Red. There's my favorite color. Good communist color. Good Russian color, too, because I'm a Russian historian. But yes, I did not Tino Hugo Boss. I'm going to let you go. Is there physical proof Jesus was real? Yes, I am Rap, since you're demanding an answer. Yes, Jesus was almost definitively a real person. That doesn't prove he was the Son of God, though. Hope you enjoyed this. Please like and subscribe. I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for a good talk. Follow us on the social medias. We went well over an hour. Yes, violent politics is delusional. Or at least, revolutions and wars are different than people just becoming animated in a civil, modern, peaceful society about political opposition. It's totally different. Take care. We'll be back tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, for our live stream lecture on ancient Greece. Please like and subscribe on your way out. And I'm not a communist, but yeah. All right. Thank you, Harrison Harry. Show love to my moderators for the great job they did. Don't call me that, kitty. And I am indeed a geography fan. Mohenjo-Daro. Look it up. And don't be a Woodrow Wilson simp. Well, don't lie about presidents. There you go. Take care. Have a great rest of your night. Thank you for joining us. I'm sorry we ended on a rougher note, but I was running out of time and somebody brought it up, so I just thought I would address it one last darn time. But thank God that this was mainly a history live stream. Really appreciate all you guys. Make sure to take care. We do history and geography here. And we will see you tomorrow for ancient Greece. I'm blanking for some reason. Have a great rest of your night. And as always, love history. Bye-bye now.